How's it going, everybody? It is Dennis, and we're back with another video this week, and we're going to be talking about YieldMax ETFs and the monthly payment we've received from every single ETF, YMAX, AMZY, APLY, TSLY, and GOOY for this month of November. Of course, November's not over just yet. It's not that time of the month to go over our whole portfolio and all the income we've earned from dividends and options, but we are going to be going over YieldMax ETFs because it is time, it is the month, it is over for YieldMax ETFs payments. Of course, we have one more week in November, but that does not count into the payments for November because that payment will go into December. December will have an extra week and an extra payment due to the way of how our holidays are structured. Of course, we have Thanksgiving next week, and therefore our ex-dividend date will not be on Thursday for next week payment, but will be on Friday, and therefore our payment date will be on Monday in December. So therefore, that payment will be registered as a December payment rather than a November payment. So it is over for YieldMax ETFs for this month of November, and therefore we're going to go over of how much we've earned. And of course, also this week we had our announcement from AMZY, APLY, MISTY, all the big ETFs for this last payment of this month. And of course, YMAX is what I have, so that one we got 24.41 for. YMAG low as usual because the week before you only get one MAG 7 stock that pays out. MISTY coming again with another $4 per share payment, and again, you know my opinion on MISTY, not going to go much into it, but this week, November 21st, actually today, it did go down quite a lot, so that's just something to look at. With AMZY, it's at $1.17 per share. That's the ETF I own, and then APLY, we have 0.3348, another ETF I own. Other ones, of course, did have some good payments, but we're going to be focusing mostly on our general monthly income earned from YieldMax ETFs. So let's go ahead and get into it with the first one and my biggest position in YieldMax ETFs. That is TSLY. TSLY earned me for the month of November $243.16 for 406 shares, being paid out a dividend per share of $59.86. Half of what we got last week or last month. Half of what we got last month. And it's kind of disappointing. We added more shares, but we still got half the amount. And of course, that is because the dividend per share was way lower than last month, way lower than previous months in general. And of course, last month we had a high record for TSLY of $426.15. And this month we halved it to $243.16. So kind of disappointing from TSLY. But what can you do? We'll see what happens this next week coming up with the YieldMax ETF payment for December. We'll see how that goes. But in general, $243.16, not too bad. Of course, I had other ETFs for this month that did carry the portfolio and carry the YieldMax ETF part of my portfolio. And we're going to get into that in a second. When it comes to just the yearly payments that we received so far from TSLY, it is $3,239.88. Of course, we still have one more month of December. And the total dividends per share we've received from TSLY is roughly $8.2728. And total amount of shares that we hold currently is 406 shares. Of course, the number is not updated, but 406 shares is how much we've hold as of November. So, moving on, next one. And this is what I mentioned before. We had other ETFs for this month that did carry the portfolio. And one of those is AMZY. AMZY paid $344.31. The new record for AMZY. As you can see, we've never received those high of payments from any other single month. So $344.31 earned. And also a record distribution per share or dividend per share of $1.17. First time AMZY has crossed the dollar line, and is very, very nice to see. And we receive, of course, that is on 293 shares that we earned, and we've not increased from the previous month. So $1.17, new record for the per share count, and also $344.31, so a new record for the dividends earned for myself personally. Looking at the total earned for 2024, that is $1,915.28, and the distribution per share of $8.1415 in total, of course, that we hold currently of shares is 293 shares. If we take a look compared to AMZY and TSLY, it seems like AMZY is cashing up to TSLY distribution per share, and that is quite surprising. So it seems like AMZY is catching up to TSLY. And of course, that's not the same when it comes to how much we've earned. But of course, with TSLY, we do hold more shares, almost 100 more shares than we'd have in AMZY. So it kind of makes sense of why we have more income coming in. But AMZY is coming close to TSLY's dividend per share, which is pretty interesting to see. We'll see what December does. If we're able to get $1 per share from TSLY, and we're able to get, $1 per share from AMZY again, then it's going to be a quite close race. It's going to be very interesting to see. So that's going to be something we'll look out for next month. Looking next in our portfolio is APLY. APLY earned us a total of $81.38 for the month. Not too shabby, not too low, not too high, just right in the middle. And that is a distribution per share of $33.48 on our 243 shares that we own. As you can see, we had 213 stagnant for 2 months, and we increased up to 243 this month. Of course, that seems to be where we invested our money rather than into AMZY, but as you can see, we should have probably put our money into AMZY, but it's okay. We bought into APLY, 30 shares into APLY up to 243. We got $33.48 dividend per share, giving us a total of $81.38. Higher than the last month, lower than the previous month of September, and of course, just growing constantly up, and up. So the total for 2024 from APLY is $684.56. The total distribution per share is $4.08 per share, and that is on the total, of course, of 243 shares. Of course, not an updated number down here, but 243 shares is how much we currently hold as of November in APLY. Looking over to GOOY. GOOY paid us another also record-breaking payment from GOOY. Of course, we did increase our shares, not from last month, but from the previous couple months, we did increase our shares dramatically up to 321 shares, and we got a payment of $37.71, and that gave us a total of $121.05. New record for our GOOY dividend distribution. As you can see previously, we were barely even going above the 3-digit mark, and we just hit that mark in August, and now we are hitting new records as well. Higher, of course, than the $81.98 we received of last month and $100 and $113 of previous months, giving us a total of $668.78 earned for 2024 from GOOY, and $4.52 earned from distribution per share from GOOY at 321 shares earned. And as you can see, it is higher than APLY. Surprisingly, it is higher than APLY. Of course, this doesn't mean that the distribution percentage is higher than APLY. Of course, GOOY could cost more than APLY does, or APLY could cost less than GOOY does, and therefore this is higher percentage-wise than GOOY. But again, just from distribution per share, this is higher than APLY. Next up, we have AMDY. AMDY paid us $89.54 at $81.14 per share of 110 shares. Yes, we went from 35 to 110 shares. Like I said, I'm going hard into this position because I believe AMD, the underlying, is undervalued, and therefore AMD is undervalued. And also, it does bring good dividends per share of $92.81 so far to us, and that gives us a total of $121.78 and $1.73 distribution per share for our 110 shares that we own currently as of November. As you can see, I've kind of not updated this number over here. Should have updated before the video, but it's okay. You guys understand. 110 shares owned as of November, $81.14 distribution per share, $89.54 earned. That actually beats APLY, where APLY has 243 shares, and here we only have 110 shares. And of course, the distribution per share is higher. Therefore, that is why our return is higher of $89.54. Last but not least, we have YMAX. But before we look at this YMAX payment, we're gonna go ahead and look at the weekly breakdown. So the weekly breakdown for YMAX, November. First week of November, we have 360 shares we owned. We got $22.47 distribution per share, giving us a total of $80.99. Then we had 375 shares owned, and we got a distribution of $11.99, giving us a total of $45.02. Of course, we can also take a look at this as well. Over here on the right, the $80.99 was a 17.30% increase from the last week in October, week 4 of October. For week 2, we had a negative 44.42% decrease from week 1 of November. Then we had 375 shares that paid us $15.23 or $57.18, and that was a 27.02% increase from week 2. And then we had 375 shares again. As you can see, we didn't add back into YMAX. I've been kind of focused on adding into AMD. That's why the AMD position grew so much. And we got $24.41 for this week, the 4th week, and that was $91.65. That's a 60.28% increase from the week 3 payment, and that gave us a total of $274.84 for the month of November. And of course, the dividend distribution per share of $74.10 for the 375 shares that we own. And if we take a look from month over month, that is 11.71% growth from the month of October, which had an 82.37% growth from the month prior. But of course, we have added shares, so you could add that as a bias. But overall, a good performing month. And as you can see the bias in the shares because we had 81.35 distribution per share in October and 74.10. So technically, if we held the same amount of shares, we would have received actually less this month. But because we have the share increase, we had that increase month over month of 11.71%. Now, if we go back to this graph, we can see that earned us the $274.84, and therefore our total YMAX dividend of 2024 so far, and of course we haven't been invested too long into this, but so far we've being invested into YMAX, we've earned $1,255.20. We currently have 5.90 distribution per share as of 2024, and we hold 375 shares of YMAX. This is really not updated. I really need to update that. But 375 shares is what we own so far of YMAX. And if we look at the grand total from YieldMax ETFs, we've earned $1,054.28 from just YieldMax ETFs alone for the month of November, and that is a 6.54% increase from October of $1,083.44, 30.63% increase from September. And then, of course, September was a little bit of a low month. But in general, we are constantly having increases. As you can see, we only have 2 negative months. And besides that, it is a constant increase of distributions and dividends earned. And that gives us a total so far in 2024, 1 month left. There's 1 month left into 2024. But so far, our YieldMax ETF distribution from 2024 is $7,885.49. So, now that we have 1 month left in 2024, what am I looking to do? What are my last month takes? What am I planning to do for this last month to try and get as much yield as I can? Well, what I did recently was I bought more APLY, I bought more AMZY, and of course, we added some YMAX shares. So these numbers are kind of not that correct of 293 and 243. I did add more shares today on ex-dividend date, November 21st. So we have more AMZY shares, we have more APLY shares. I added, of course, more TSLY shares. We have more GOOY shares. We added a bunch more shares. Of course, as you guys may or may not know, I'm running a strategy to where I take week 1's dividend, reinvest it into week 2 on ex-dividend date, take week 2's dividend, reinvest it week 3's ex-dividend date, and so on and so on and so on. That's what I've been doing, and that's why I've been able to achieve growth so far for the past couple months, besides September, of course, when we had the negative 0.86%. Not too bad. Negative 0.86% is kind of just nothing, kind of chunk change. It was literally like $5, $6. But if we take a look, we're consistently growing. YMAX, as you can see, I've of course, for this month alone, I didn't add week over week, I didn't add that many shares. But if we look over month, I did add a quite substantial amount of shares from 304 to 375 into YMAX. And then that is the reason why we had such a decently higher payment for this month. But once again, AMD continued to reinvest into AMD, continued to put more shares into there, especially that now it's trading really below its the 50 and 200 day moving average. So continue to add shares into there. Continue to add shares into GOOY because that is also dropped recently today, November 21st. So that is also under its 50-day moving average. Continue to add into that. And AMZY and APLY, of course, I bought into on their ex-dividend date. So that also will have more shares. And TSLY, I do take 50% of its dividend, estimated dividend, and throw it back into TSLY. So then I can at least, you know, kind of lower my cost average on TSLY because I am kind of in a bad position on TSLY. Of course, TSLY was trending downwards for a while, but now with their new strategy, seems like they're doing quite well. And also TSLY is going up and they're doing quite well. They're able to capture a lot of that upside. But anyways, that's how it's looking so far. So I think December we'll have a lot more shares. Of course, we'll have a lot more shares for all our YieldMax ETFs. And hopefully with those increase in shares, we will also have an increase in distribution per share. Hopefully, YMAX will be able to give us another 81 cents per share distribution. We'll have another consistent 37 cents for GOOY, another AMD payment of around maybe 80-90 cents per share. APLY hopefully continues to stay in the 30 cent, even maybe 40 cent mark. AMZY, if it could deliver another dollar per share, that'll be great. But I don't think it maybe is going to last that long. But even if we get like an 80 or 90 cent per share, it would be great as well, especially with the share increase that I've added on my own. And of course, TSLY, let's get back to that dollar mark. Let's get back to that dollar to 80-90 cent mark. We'll stop with this 60 cent stuff. Okay, let's stop with that. Let's go back to $1.80, I know that you guys could do it. I know that Tesla did go up quite quick in the month of November and October, so maybe you guys weren't able to capture all the dividends with that, or all the premiums with that. But let's go back to the $1.8196 mark and see what we could do. But I think this summer is going to be a really good way to end off 2024 if nothing goes wrong, hopefully. So it's going to be a really good way to end off 2024, and I think we're going to be able to get maybe to even the $9,000 mark from YieldMax ETFs. Maybe not the 10K mark, but 9,000, we'll get there. We'll get there. Unless I add a bunch of shares into one of these ETFs for some reason, maybe for my option strategy, we'll be able to get to 10K. But besides that, thank you so much for watching. That has been my portfolio for the month of November, or at least the YieldMax ETF portion of my portfolio. And next week, we'll be going over just some ideas I have about the market. And of course, the week after, once we are able to get our QDT payments in and our last trades on options in, then I'll be able to make a video on how much we've earned for the month of November. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope your guys' payments for this week were high and great, especially for everybody who is invested into MISTY, even though I have mixed opinions on it. And anybody who's invested into AMZY, hope you guys got some beautiful dividends from that. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys leave a like, subscribe, share out to anybody else, or watch my other videos that I have on any other topic. And I'll see you guys next week for next week's video, as always on Friday. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.